As a photographer, it can sometimes be challenging to find places to sell your work. And whether you do photography as a hobby or a full-time venture in your business, it can be difficult to find new clients and new fans for your work. Luckily, there's Etsy for photographers. Now, Etsy has over 90 million customers already shopping on their online marketplace. So that's actually why it's so great, is because it has a huge built-in customer base for you. And photographers are using Etsy to sell their photos to people all around the world and create more passive income. But where do you begin? So in this video, we're going to talk about the types of photos that do sell well on Etsy and some photo rules to get you started selling your photography work there. Etsy is a great place to sell photography. So if you are not that familiar with Etsy or you don't have an Etsy store, Etsy is a really easy to use marketplace where you can set up your own shop selling your photos for sale. Etsy also, because of that built-in customer base I mentioned, is really easy for people to find you and for you to get new customers that in your normal day-to-day work as a photographer you might not have been exposed to. Now, like all kinds of online marketplaces and shopping sites, there are rules that you will need to follow to sell your photos on Etsy. Etsy has a list of prohibited or restricted types of content and types of products can be sold. So they're kind of the same thing as all the other marketplaces, but you can go take a look at them on Etsy's website if you want. Just make sure that you're not selling anything that would be in violation of those policies. Make sure that you read all of Etsy's rules carefully. You also need to make sure that you are not in violation of any copyright laws because everything you sell on Etsy does need to be your own work. Now, maybe you're wondering what kinds of photos actually sell well on Etsy. Can I even make money? Is it really worth it to sell on Etsy as a photographer? I'm going to show you exactly what types of photos do sell best on Etsy, but I also just want to mention there's essentially two types of product photography that you can sell on Etsy. The first is framed photography. Now, some people love to purchase their photos or their art already pre-framed because it cuts out that extra step from them. Maybe they don't have a lot of confidence in getting the products framed themselves. So if you already frame your own photography, you can sell them this way on Etsy. But selling framed photography does come with a few downsides. For one, shipping can be really expensive. So because they're large and bulky and fragile, there's a lot to consider to ship photos, and it may limit your customer base because you may not want to ship framed photos that are fragile internationally, so you may be restricted to only selling within your home country. So if you're looking for an alternative, you should consider selling your photos as digital products or selling the digital download for people to print out the photos themselves at home, or they can have the photos professionally printed themselves. So the upside of selling digital photos is the instant delivery. Once a buyer's payment is processed, they will receive their digital photo and you don't have to do anything else. It is very passive and requires very little work on your part. The downside to this is that if you choose to do digital photos, you lose a good bit of control around your product. Copyright rules will protect you and your photos do belong to you. You have the exclusive rights to them called copyright. There is no guarantee that the customers will follow those rules. The person who buys the photos may distribute them to other people, and this is really beyond your control, unfortunately. But I will say that as a top Etsy seller with over 13,000 sales since 2020 on the platform, although I do not sell photography, I do sell other types of physical and digital products, and in all of these sales, I have never had a customer with those kinds of bad intentions who wanted to distribute my product. You can also create and offer a license commercially to other people who may want to use your product and charge an extra fee for the commercial use. But whether you choose to do that or you want them for personal use only, make sure in your Etsy product descriptions that you do clearly spell out whether or not your product is for personal use only or if you offer a commercial licensing option. Some of the best photography to sell on Etsy includes landscape photography like these, any kind of wide angle or picturesque places that are really famous, or, even thinking of specific types of nature or wildlife photography can be helpful. So specifically looking at, for example, English countryside, or you want to think about deserts or mountain ranges. Travel photography is another really popular niche on Etsy to sell your photos. So if you already have really high quality, beautiful photos from travel, this can be a great place to sell those photos, but keep in mind, you probably want to be selling these in a bundle. So different travel locations together, like this product right here that has different cities, or a bundle of similar locations like multiple pictures from Hawaii, like this example of this print right here. You could also sell wildlife photography. This is another popular category on Etsy. And you want to do some research, look through Etsy to see what kind of things are already selling well so that you get an idea of some of the most popular options on Etsy. So I see a lot of winter animal photography, for example, or maybe you want to get more specialized in your photos by talking about, ocean photography, for example. We might see a lot of pictures of the beach and dolphins and things along those lines. I'll give you a couple more examples of really good niches. If you have really large, high quality photos that you could sell on Etsy, your customer is going to send this off to have it printed, so you don't have to worry about the printing part, but large scale photos for home decor and interior design are definitely some of the most popular options on Etsy. You can see some of these right here. Some of them may actually be framed, but it kind of works the same way, whether they're framed or digital. Large scale photos are definitely something that sells well on Etsy. And then finally, I will show you a couple more. One is vintage photography or vintage photos. These are going to be in black and white or sepia toned vintage photos or modern photos that feel vintage through their editing. This is very popular. So if that fits what you already have, this would be something worth looking into. And then finally, the last category that is really overlooked is going to be stock photography. So in this case, you'd be selling not to Etsy customers looking to decorate their homes, but rather selling business to business. So you're probably selling to, for example, real estate agents or other Etsy sellers or website designers. But you can actually sell your stock photography for product mock-ups, for wedding blogs, for beauty blogs or beauty Instagram accounts, things like that. All of these can be really great ways to sell your existing photos. Maybe you just saw some of the examples that we talked about in the video and you thought, wow, some of those sellers are not charging very much for their products. Can I actually even make any money on Etsy? And one of the reasons that photographers use Etsy is because they're tapping into a large number of buyers. So we're really talking about a ton of volume when it comes to sales traffic without a lot of money up front. On Etsy, there are no monthly subscription fees, and the only thing that you're going to pay up front is 20 cents per listing every time you create the product. And that product listing fee lasts 4 months before it renews for another 20 cents. You will also pay a 6.5% commission fee when you make a sale, but you only pay that when you actually make the sale. There are a couple of other fees involved when it comes to the final transaction, but these only occur after you've made the sale itself. Most photographers who are selling successfully on Etsy are making their money based on quantity. So they're selling a very high volume of their photos when the photos themselves are a lower or more reasonable price. So yes, their photos are priced really low, but they are also selling digital photos that the customer will then print and have framed. So you have to think about a lot of your typical material costs that you might have when you're printing photos to sell them in an art gallery or in a market or in person in some kind of setting are not going to be there on Etsy. You're not paying gallery commissions that are really high. You're not paying market fees or framing or printing fees. All of that is going to be on the customer, which is how photographers are able to sell their work for a lot less cost on Etsy, but their material costs are also a lot lower. You also want to put yourself in the customer's shoes and understand how they value a digital photo. So they might really love your work, but your goal is going to be to sell the same digital photos again and again and again at a higher volume. Customers are just not going to be willing to pay more than $20 to $30 maximum for a digital print. And let's be honest, how many times are you actually selling the same photos again and again in person? You're probably not doing that very often. And that is where Etsy offers you a path forward for more passive income from the photos that you already have taken. And I will say this, selling photography on Etsy is probably not going to be your primary source of income or even one of your major sources of income. But if you are a photographer and you already have a wide variety of existing work, or you're a hobbyist and you just want to recoup a little bit of money from your hobby and turn it into a side hustle, Etsy is a really great choice because it is very easy to use and it's very easy to get started. And what's more is that you already have one of the most critical skills to being successful on Etsy, and that is being a great photographer and producing high quality photos of your digital products. So I hope that this video helped you learn a little bit more about how to make money as a photographer on Etsy, what types of photos are popular, and if you want to learn more about how to grow your Etsy shop, how to make money online with digital and printable products, be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel.